to my sewing room. I have a very special guest today who will be sharing all kinds of wonderful things with you. Her name is Clotilde. Now, the theme of the show today is how to use a perfect pleater. That's a very different kind of pleating that gives a really tailored effect. I would like to share with you some perfect pleating. This is on the little doll named Ashley. The pleating that goes down the front of her very tailored sailor dress is called perfect pleating, as well as the pleating on her little skirt. Perfect pleating is not just for doll clothes, I can assure you. For perfect pleating can be done for home decorating. Here the perfect pleater has been used for a cornice board, and the perfect pleating has been used going down the front of a curtain. And of course we made this one a little bit smaller than a window would be normally, so you can see exactly how we're going to use the perfect pleating. Perfect pleating, which is very tailored, can also be used on a wonderful baby quilt. Sometimes you really would like it to be a little more tailored, then perfect pleating is really the answer, as you can see how it travels down the side of this beautiful baby quilt. Now, some of you love to make shark's teeth. Guess what? We have a new way of making shark's teeth, as you can see on Ashley's dress here. This is Ashley's dress with shark's teeth, and then traveling on down to the skirt, just some tiny little shark's teeth, once again done with the perfect pleater. A wonderful new technique we have for you today. Another way of using interesting pleats is found on this beautiful white heirloom dress. It almost looks like tucks. The pleats are in there in a very tailored way. And you know, for those of you that love to embroider by hand, or that are so fortunate as to have an embroidery machine, which this one was done, built-in embroidery in a sewing machine, you might want to put some embellishment there. The pleating is once again the tailored pleating used on the sleeves. And again, those wonderful built-in embroidery stitches, tiny little pink and blue and green flowers, makes for a very delicate but a very tailored sleeve for a little girl's dress. Women's blouses, oh, we do enjoy doing women's blouses. This particular blouse has very wide and very good-looking tailored shark's teeth, once again done using this very interesting pleating method that we have to share with you on the show today. And now I would like for you to come over to the technique boards with me and let me share with you how very easy it is to do this very tailored type of pleating. We have some very exciting things to share with you concerning a pleater which makes a very tailored look to heirloom or very artistic sewing. First of all, I'm going to take a piece of lace, as you've seen the French lace many times. I'm going to take a hotel key. And on this little pleater, I have put my lace, and I'm going to make some wide pleats. In other words, I put the lace there, and I go along here and slip the hotel key in, and then I'm going to make some pleats which look like this. Isn't that an interesting look for lace? Also, if you would like to put the pleats a little bit closer together, this wonderful drapery tie back shows how to do that. That's another total look. Very interesting look here I'd like to share with you. This is a longer pleater where I can make a longer piece. All right, first of all, I'm going to put the fabric in and pleat it on every one of these little pleats, right side up. Then I'm going to iron some freezer paper over it. Next, I'll take it out and then put the fusible interfacing behind there, pressing it on. Now, I'm going to straight stitch across the top, straight stitch across the bottom, and to get this wonderful effect, I will then come to this side and pull the pleats back and straight stitch all the way across here. It ends up looking like it has piping behind it, but it doesn't. Then this lovely piece right here with this effect is the next very tailored look I will get using the pleater. You can also use the pleater with these wonderful, the big spaces in behind to come in and pleat fabric to make a really nice pleated skirt. Now, isn't that an easy way to make a pleated skirt? And for those that love something very frilly and pretty, this is scalloped lace. See how it comes up and down? Once again, this is very ordinary lace that has been pleated on the pleater. And I have invited a very special friend of mine to come and share with you exactly how it is that you do these wonderful techniques. May I welcome Clotilde to the show. Thank you for being here.
And thank you for having me. Martha, I wanted to show specifically some techniques for working with the pleater because, first of all, I extend a seam allowance beyond the edge of the pleater board. I put in several anchor pins helping to hold it on the straight and narrow because it does tend to want to scooch and shift. Then with my thumbs here, I will pick up the louver, go out to the end, each time using a credit card or hotel card so that you're sure that it is tucked all the way down in. With this pleater board, you have only 3/8 of an inch return, which saves bulk as well as fabric. But I can skip every other louver, every third louver, skip every fourth louver, and look what I have here. Here I have the look of the wider pleat, but the return is always only 3/8 of an inch return. Now what I'm going to do is to show you how I am going to fold the fabric, double it, and then I am going to pleat it so that I now have a clean finished edge at the bottom edge. It's doubled for a lovely ruching as well as for making a little flower. You will draw a circle the size of a large spool of thread. Then you will start zigzag stitching on the outside edge of that circle. You will zigzag, 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 ending up with a rhinestone or a pearl. You have a beautiful little flower, a boutonniere, here for a lovely quilt block. And you could finish so many interesting things. You can also do twisting.
You know what? I want to show them this beautiful vest. It is out of this world with the twisted, with the satin fabric and the gold twisting. And Clotilde, I really want you to show us how to do that.
Well, it is wonderful. It's really easy to do. It's scary. It looks difficult. But here you are going to pleat your fabric face down, and then you are going to have fused the interfacing to it while it is in the pleater board. You will then turn it right side out, taking double-faced woven edge ribbon. You will insert one underneath each of these tucks. See, they're tucks now, they're no longer pleats, they're held permanently in place. I will now twist this up and over, as you can see, tuck it under, reverse the tuck, pin it down. Twist it the opposite direction, turn it under, reverse that tuck, and pin that down, as you see I'm doing right here. And this is so easy to do, it is TV listening work. Twist it up and over, tuck it under, reverse the tuck, pin it down. Twist the opposite direction, tuck it under, reverse the tuck, and pin it down. Got that sort of caught. So that finishes up that, and then you would cut out your beautiful vest. To make scallop pleated lace, as you see here, if you bought this, it would be probably $20, $30 a yard because it's all hand labor, but it's going to be your hand labor. So what I'm going to do is to show you how this is done. You take lace, ribbon, fabric that's clean finished on both edges. Then I am going to pleat 3 louvers straight, and I am going to now hold the fabric at a 45-degree angle. You see it's all wrinkled this way. I'm going to pleat the fabric going out, make my fingers go out. Here, generally, you don't need the hotel key or the credit card. Do you see how that shape scallop is taking place? I now am straightening this out. I will go 3 across the top of the hill, as I call it, bring it down, pleat 3 going down the hill, and then I'm going to repeat my pattern over and over and over and over, and there is my scalloped lace.
Oh, that is so fascinating, and it's so easy. And once again, Clotilde, it is very tailored, and I think so many people are looking for a tailored project. And next, Clotilde has a really fascinating home decorating project for you. I wanted to share with you some of the beautiful pillows using the pleater. This is the one with the twisted ribbon. I just love it and think that would be the most wonderful present for a little girl's room or for a new baby. Then there is this one that is such gorgeous work, more traditional quilting with the pleater and the lovely squares. And then if you're going to do something for your bedroom, a wonderful silk dupioni with the pleats going in several different directions. Isn't that an interesting effect? And Clotilde, this is one of the ones I love with the box pleat. I don't know how many of you do anything with upholstery or with valances, but it's such a pain in the neck to measure those pleats, and the pleater measures it for you. It's wonderful. And then the project for today uses that wonderful box pleating where you want just wide pleats. Can you see on that where it goes around just those wonderful wide pleats and a good looking, very tailored pillow? Clotilde, show us what you do there.
Well, first of all, I want to show you how there's no ugly fabric when you're working with the pleater. This I found for $2 a yard on the remnant table. It looks like it's ready for a clown outfit, but look what happens when it is pleated, and it just makes it into a fairy tale. Really beautiful gorgeous. For a yoke or whatever you want to use it, in a pillow, inserts or what have you. I want to show how to use this double box pleater that is very special, and it has been cut into thirds and then taped together. But what you're going to do is to be able to make that double box pleating or the traditional 3-inch wide box pleat that you showed on the brown. What I'm going to do is to use this metal press bar, which helps me a lot. I have extended a seam allowance beyond the edge of the pleater board so that I could sew it while it's in here, as you will see. Then I am going to bring this up and over, tuck this in to each of these louvers. Do you see how it is going in? And with this one, I will have the double box pleater. I would press this every time. When you want a permanent pleat, you would use the Raja press cloth. This has chemicals in it. When you have a minimum of 50% polyester fiber content, you press it with the press cloth, the Raja press cloth, and you are going to have permanent pleats because of that magic of heat, polyester, and chemicals. Now, assume that I have finished this. This has that double box pleating, but I am going to hold this temporarily in place with the rescue tape that I can't do anything without. I have to have rescue tape, and I put it right on here as I already have. Then
I've even hemmed a skirt that fell out with rescue tape and worn it.
When you're doing a television program, you need rescue tape. Now, I am going to turn this upside down. You can see how that extended seam allowance is right here. I am going to stitch right now across that seam allowance.
While it's still on the board.
While it's still in the board, correct. The seam allowance is extended, so that gives you plenty of opportunity to sew it, and you keep everything just nice and in position, and the rescue tape is holding it in position on the other side, and it just goes along here just so super. It is just wonderful, and have to have that down when I cut this. Then I'm going to take this out, remove that rescue tape that held it in place so that I can now pull this out of the board, and I have a gorgeous double box pleat ruffle. Now, I didn't press this, but had I pressed it with that Raja press cloth, it would be permanently in place. Here it is, double box pleater in that beautiful boxing for upholstery, for a pillow, for a headboard. So many things you can do with it.
A very tailored look. And you know what? The strip, even just sewn on one side, I can really see that used in all kinds of ways, including a dust ruffle.
Oh,
just
dust
all
ruffle
kinds
be
of
super.
Clotilde, thank you so much for being here and for presenting us with this wonderful, very tailored pillow. And next, I have used the perfect pleater as a wonderful embellishment for lace on my New Zealand blouse. We have a beautiful trim using the pleater and a scalloped bias, and you are going to love both of these treatments. Over here on the New Zealand blouse, which has the beautiful rounded yoke, you will see at the neckline the scalloped bias. absolutely gorgeous trim. Then let's come down to the bottom of the round yoke, and you'll see the scalloped bias again used as piping, and then the pleated lace, really a tailored look using lace. The same treatment is used on the sleeve. Let me hold this up so you can see that absolutely wonderful sleeve with the cuff, the scalloped bias, and the pleated lace. I think this is one of the most beautiful treatments I've ever seen on a cuff. Now then, making it is very easy. You do not have to have a fancy sewing machine, only a blind hem stitch. Okay, first of all, I'm going to use my fabric. I'm going to cut a bias and fold it in half so I have a finished edge. The finished scalloped bias looks like this. Some people call this a shell finish also, but it really is a scalloped bias. And this is what your stitch looks like on your sewing machine we're going to use. It's called a blind hem, and I think every sewing machine has a blind hem stitch. All right, now let's use the pleater to make the lace. I've already pleated one section of lace in here using my hotel key or credit card or whatever. I move over 3, I move up 3 more, push it in, 1, 2, 3, I move up 3 more, hold it and push it in. That is how I make my pleated lace. And here is what the pleated lace looks like after I've stitched down the top. Now then, here is how you attach it. I have my shell bias, my scalloped bias, I put it over on top of my lace, and I simply stitch down right along where the shell is to attach it. In other words, here is where it has already been attached to my pleated lace. Then I take my fabric or my cuff or whatever, fold it down, and I can see where I'm lining it up on the very edge and stitch it and fold it back, and you can see that beautiful scalloped shell edge, scalloped bias. Now that I'm using a blind hem stitch, and I'm guiding it just very carefully right here in this little groove so it will go just exactly where I want it to go, and I am going to stitch it a little bit slowly just so I can be sure and hold it in. I can also use my shish kebab stick to hold it, be sure it goes in the right place. And I am making the little scalloped bias, and some people call this a shell finish. It's really a sweet one to use not only on ladies' clothes, but to also use on the edge of little baby things. The scallops, but now I'm going to go faster to show you that I don't have to go at a snail pace to make this absolutely beautiful finish. You see there how easy it is to make a really delicate and a very pretty edge. And now then, we have a very special quilt technique to share with you. This adorable Animal Alphabet Quilt has so many wonderful techniques with applique. The one we're going to share with you today, and let's go over here to this elephant to look at it, is we're going to share with you how to do these perfect inside curves and outside curves. Now, I have invited my very close friend and business colleague, Louise Bayard, who is, I think, the machine applique expert of the world, to show you all of the tricks of those inside and outside curves. Louise, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Martha. Now, when you do the inside and outside curves, you need to remember that you have to leave the needle in the fabric and pivot. And the pivoting is needs to be on one side or the other. When you are doing an outside curve, you need to leave it on the outside of the curve, the needle down when you pivot. When you're doing an inside curve, you leave it on the inside of the curve. So I'm going to stitch here, and I'm using a really wide satin stitch. I'm going to stitch a little bit, and as I approach the curve, this is a really sharp outside curve. I'm going to leave the needle down on the outside of the curve, lift the foot up a little, and pivot. I find it's better to pivot too often than not often enough. Okay. Again, leave it on the outside. Now, when you leave it on the wrong side of a curve, like I'm going to right now purposefully leave it on the inside of this outside curve and do the pivot, you're going to get a little V shape or missing spot in your stitching. So I'm going to do it again and really make it...
You're doing it wrong again.
I'm doing it wrong to make it really obvious what I'm doing. Okay, I'm going to pull this out here and kind of show right here. You can see these little V's of the base fabric, or rather the applique fabric showing, and that's because you've left it the needle down on the wrong side when you've pivoted. If you look at this curve, there's more area to cover on the outside of the curve than there is on the inside of the curve. Okay, so it really doesn't matter. I can't actually say you leave it on the right or the left side of your applique. It just depends on which way you're going. I'm going to start up again, and this time I'm going to move it so that I'm going to do an inside curve. And again, this is really a very sharp curve. And so what side would I leave it on this time?
The inside.
Right.
Because you're doing an inside curve. See, I caught on.
Yeah, so you leave it on the inside, lift your foot up, and pivot. Now sometimes when you're going around curves, you can guide it to cover up pretty good. But most of the time when it's a really sharp curve, I really suggest that you actually lift the foot up and pivot. But you need to remember never to pivot without the needle being in the fabric. Okay.
So use your needle down position if you have one.
Correct. Always use your needle down or put your needle down in your fabric, and that way it will do the stitching. Now I'm going to pull this out again to show the difference this time between this curve here where it's completely covered and then this curve here that has the V's on it. That's because it was left on the wrong side when it was
now let me
pivoted.
see if I got my lesson. When you're doing an outside curve, you need to leave your needle on the outside when you pivot. Was that right?
Correct.
A plus, okay. When you're doing an inside curve, you need leave your needle on the inside to pivot.
Of the curve.
Of the curve. Louise, that is a very important thing to learn.
Thank you.
And now won't you travel along with me to my attic? Sometimes some very special friends give me a very special gift. This dress happens to fall in that category. My very dear friend Margie Bell, who loves heirloom sewing, came into my shop one day and said, "Martha, I really want you to have my great-grandmother's wedding dress." So this is Margie's great-grandmother's wedding dress. The netting on the top is absolutely beautiful. I really tend to believe it is English because the English did more embroidery on netting than the Swiss did. It almost looks like netting cut work. And you know what? If you have one of the modern sewing machines of today, you could make this kind of cut work on a piece of English netting yourself. Then look how pretty the ribbons come up. By the way, this dress is a very unusual fabric. It is blue dotted Swiss. See how the ribbons come up and tie? And then of course the pigeon breast front. Now the sleeve is absolutely spectacular. It has a pretty little point that comes down and goes up and has a matching insertion to go along with the netting that is on the top. Now then, as we come down the skirt and look at this absolutely beautiful fabric, you can see that there are scallops on the bottom of the skirt. Another very interesting thing, the ruffle has been pleated. Can you see that? The ruffle has been pleated rather than gathered. The netting insertion goes up and down with that very, very full pleated ruffle. I'll tell you what, it's very rare to find a dress, or wedding dress, or any dress that was called, these were called lingerie clothes, by the way. Don't ask me where the term came from. They were just called lingerie dresses and lingerie blouses. But this is a beautiful fabric, very unusual to find any color. So I was very thrilled to have been given this most precious gift by my friend Margie Bell. I have had such a good time in my sewing room today with my special guest. I hope you have too. And I would really like to invite you to be with us next time.